Good morning, everyone. It's Dex here from AutoCAD. And thanks for joining us for today's webinar, AutoCAD, Better Workflows and Boosted Productivity. So I'll have technical consultant David Gerber presenting for us. So first, we just go through about A2K. We're all about fostering innovation through consulting and training. A2K Technologies plays a vital role in helping the infrastructure, building, mining, construction, architecture, and manufacturing industries reach their full potential by delivering complete technology solutions and support services such as education, consulting, and IT managed services. We're working with visionaries to shape the future of design and in turn enable them through innovation to minimize risks, improve productivities, and achieve excellence. A2K Technologies is considered the business partner of choice and trusted advisor by vendors and clients. We partner with major software and hardware vendors to meet our clients' technology needs. We strive to exceed client expectations by understanding the challenges and delivering solutions through experience and innovation. We work with clients and companies of any size nationally and abroad. And also, guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to add them in the chat box and we'll go through them after the presentation. Over to you, David.
Thanks for that. Okay, let me just close this out. All right, guys. So thanks for joining us. So we'll go a little bit about how we can be a bit more productive and just find little, I guess, tips and tricks on how to be a bit more productive and efficient in our workflows, especially for stuff that just takes a little bit of extra time and is a bit more time consuming. So we'll start off with just dynamic blocks. So I'll maybe just put a rectangle in here and I'll show you how we can start to manipulate it. So if we just move it, create it into a block, maybe we'll just call it dynamic rectangle. In here, you get all of your settings. I'm sure you must have seen this before, but you can specify your base point, specify your objects, even add a description, maybe CAD. And we will just select our base point and select our object. It'll bring us into this block editor and we can start to play around with different parameters and actions and the like. So maybe we want to add a rotation, for example. So we'll just pick our rotation. It'll tell us the actions that we need to take. So we just want to specify our base point, specify our radius, and then maybe a default rotation, and then just our label. If you'll notice, we have this little exclamation point, and that's basically just saying that we don't have any actions associated to that. So we just need to go to our action, our rotate, and again, it'll tell us what we need to do. So we'll just pick our parameter and we will select our objects. So now if we just quickly test it, let me just find it. We have this little rotation mark. So instead of typing in rotate or going to the toolbar here, right away we have this little handle that we can use, which is pretty handy. We can do something similar maybe for a stretch. So let's just add a linear dimension and we will stretch it. This is our parameter, our point that we want to start. And then we just have to select what we want to stretch. So again, if we test it, we can start to move it this way. Let's just add one more. So we'll add another linear dimension. And maybe we will scale it this time. So as we start to do that, it starts to move. If you notice that this is actually not in the correct position, and as I start to move this, everything kind of gets askew, it's because it's not smart enough to pick up the fact that you're doing these in these steps, so you actually have to add them. So we can actually just go back to here. So our stretch, our scale, for example, if we just edit our action, we can just modify what we actually want. So let's just select everything. And same with our rotate. We want to rotate to actually select everything. So let's just add that to our selection. So now if we test it out, and we start to rotate, they're all moving together now. So I'll just close this out. And we can use that kind of similar workflow for maybe a door. So I have this door that I can start to flip depending on how I want it. I can also change its thickness for the walls, and I can also change its sizing. So I'll show you guys how I've created this. It's similar to what I was just doing here. So I have all these different parameters. If I just toggle this, you can see that they're actually all here, but because of the visibility states, it starts to pick and choose what it's hiding, and that's based off of what I selected. I've also adjusted parameters. So for this one, for example, let me just open up my properties panel. If I select this one, let me just find which one it was. Stretch action. So I start to play around with distance multipliers, for example. So this one, I want it to stretch 0.5. It's usually set to 1, so you can start to play around with that. I'll show you the window example, which also plays around with that, where that comes in handy. So I'll just close this out. I'll just discard the changes. So for this window, I can start to specify the distance. So I just made it basically extend a meter. And I can also add extra windows to it if I needed to. And that's where that distance multiplier comes into effect. So let me just open up this one, for example, and I'll go into here. And you'll see my distance multiplier is at 0.33. So basically, as the user is moving this input, dragging this little handle, it's going to move like these ones, for example, what I've specified to be 0.33% of the distance, a third basically. And then this next script is going to be 2/3. So that way it's always going to be even. We can also do things such as maybe we want to use something like this where we have different elevations and are different scales. So I could even go into here and say maybe this is our interior view. So I've added a couple more elements. Maybe at 125, exterior and interior have a little bit less detail. And then 1 to 100 has even less. So this could be handy just because it's the same window. I guess we'll just call it a family. And in that family, it has different views. So really quickly, we can start to manipulate that. We can also do something along the lines of this one family having different profiles maybe. So as we start to figure out how many windows we have of that certain family, or maybe we're drawing them in section, planned, elevation, etc., it's actually just all housed within this family. And again, it's just the visibility settings that we did with that rectangle. I also like to put these into tool palettes. So if I just type in tool palettes, or if you like to use buttons, it's just under view and tool palette. And this way I can just start to drag and drop everything that I have into here. I've made it into an attributed text just because when you start to mirror text that's within blocks, it actually doesn't mirror the text. So attributed text is a way to get around that. So again, I have this little align tool that I can align to stuff as well. I can then maybe make this 920 and just flip it around. Let me just I also put a mask in here. So the reason I did that is so that I don't have to actually, let me just put it in front though. It masks out the the hatching and the line work of the walls. So as I start to move it, I actually don't need to worry about trimming and extending hatches and line work. So I've done the same thing here. It's just I've set the walls to be certain distances to cater to the wall sizes that you have. If you don't like that it's masking out, you can also just use wipeout frame. And we'll just set that to 1. And you'll notice that that wipeout, that the mask that I use is now just showing where it's actually being used. Take advantage of this. Autodesk actually already has a bunch of dynamic blocks in here. So in your tool palettes, there's tons of different ones. So maybe take advantage and either use these to adjust to your certain workflow, or maybe just use them in general. They might not have masks and little things to cater, but you can easily do that. I also like to use tables. So for example, I just picked out all the blocks that are drawn in here, and I'll just have to download from source, and you'll notice that it's changed because it's live linking what's actually available. You can also just start to match the properties of here. I think this one's pretty tiny, so let me just unlock it. So you'll see it's in there. I think that's too big though. Let me just double check what the sizing is. 150. It is a little bit limited to what you can do in the tables. You can insert extra stuff, and these are basically, all these parameters are just what I've specified. I can also export this table out into an Excel. So I just do export table export, and then I'll just override my old one that I already have. Oh, I have it open. I'll just keep that there. Anyways, it'll come up like this. And I just use this as a base to actually go into my main one, where I just put colors as I want it to be. And I also have just nested if statements, and then costing as well, which is going to change. So for example, if this window actually changed into an 870 window, then that would adjust to here, that type, and it also adjusts the pricing. And then that way I could just link that back into the Excel here. So it's not live, unfortunately, but it does give you a little bit more things to play around with. So right away I can see, like, have I drawn what I need to draw? Like maybe I need to add more. Maybe I added too many for this, for example, and right away I can see the cost. These are the same Excel table. The only difference is their extraction data. So if I just go to here, I can see that the range is basically just a G9 instead of H10, which is this one. So you can start to have a bunch of data in your Excel, but only link certain aspects of it. When I do make a table, I can start to either start from an empty table, a data link, which would be in Excel, or maybe I just wanted to get from the data extraction. When you're first using it, you can create your own, but I'm just going to edit one that I already have. So I'll just go in here. It'll look like that. So it's just a DXC. And then these are all the attributes that I was telling you about. So you can pick and choose what you want in your table. And then you can specify how you want to sort it, how it's listed. You can even change the name of it if you wanted to. So then I can just insert this in. So I'll just insert it into here. When I do print, if I did add some stuff that wasn't actually updated, the good thing is it will actually tell me, and then I'll just say update them all. And then right away, you know that your data is correct. So it's pretty handy for that. The Excel one won't do that, unfortunately. It'll only tell you that in Excel itself. But yeah, just something to note. We can also play around with some Express tools. So just in here, Express tools. So maybe you want arc text. So if you just click on this one, we can select our arc and we can just type in arc text and all these different settings that you can play around with. I think 200 should be okay. And you'll see it's placed our text along here. We can also maybe auto number stuff. So maybe I'll just quickly create an array, rectangular. One, and maybe it'll just be, just quickly create an array so I can show you guys, and I'll just explode it. So auto number is just here. So if I just click on auto number, I can select the numbers or the objects that I want to number. It will give you these selection options. So basically X would be left to right, Y would be top to bottom, and then select order is whatever you select it to be. So I'll just say left to right. And then you can specify your increment. So starting at what number and skipping how many numbers. Let's just stick to 1, 1 for now. And then in here again, you can either override them, you can add a prefix, suffix, or even replace stuff. So maybe we'll just override these ones for now. So right away, it's renumbered our numbers. I'll show you that again with this one. So let's just select up to down, 1, 1, and we want it to be a prefix. So right away, it's renumbered this. And if we actually look in our text and just double click it, it's actually added that in here. We can also enclose objects. So maybe we want to enclose these and maybe circles and constant. And you'll notice that it's created those circles. If we didn't like how they were, we can just change their properties. So maybe the radius, we want it to be 1,000 instead. So right away, we can quickly create grid lines just based off of that. We can also use break lines instead of drawing them ourselves. So it's just here, break line tool. We can start to maybe, I'll just specify the size. I know that 500 works for me here. So then you just select your starting point, your end point, and where you want the break line to be. And it's created that for you. If you do have repetitive tasks, there is also an action recorder tool. So that's just under Manage tab. So maybe we want to create something to audit files that we get from external parties. So if we just click on Record, it brings up this little action tree. So as we start to do stuff, so maybe I want to audit this file, it records that. And I'm just going to say, yes, fix any errors. Now maybe I want to purge, and we'll just select all. And I don't want to enter any names, and I don't want to verify the names. Maybe I want to purge again for reg apps. So basically it'd just be any extra data or embedded code. Maybe you're getting it from a different program. So you just want to make sure that any of the program data or objects are excluded. So again, I'm just going to do that, the star and the no. And maybe even I'll go to, I will actually just maybe save as well. And I'll just close that and I'll go back to my manage. So I'm just going to stop that. And now maybe I want to name it clean. And you'll see that it's set to a folder path. So you can start to set that as a company directory so that everyone can use it. In here, I can just say use this to clean external party drawings. Check for inconsistencies. In this case, I don't have to worry about any units or anything. So that's why I'm just unchecking that, and I'll just click OK. So now you'll notice it's up here. And if I press play, it'll actually go through everything. And it's actually opened up my save as dialog box. So maybe that way you can just save it as audited, for example. If I did go to another one, for example, if I just go here, it's actually even a command now. So if I just say clean, it's going to run the same thing again. You can see it open up my save as. So if it is something that you guys are doing a lot, maybe consider having a look at this action recorder tool, because you can quickly do stuff and it creates your own command as well. Another thing I use are sheet sets. So it's just SSM for sheet set manager. It'll pop up on my other screen. Let me just move it over. Otherwise, if you like using buttons, it's just here, sheet set manager. And I'll just close out my tools for now. So in here, you can start to play around with your structure in your office. So for example, I can put all my architectural stuff in here, all my electrical in here. If I hover over this, I can see like all the file specifications. I can see its name, its size, who even has it open. Right now it's locked because it's actually the one that I'm working on at the moment. So you can see that I'm using it and I'm last editing it. This is pretty convenient because, for example, I have this attributed fields page that I have in there that's not actually part of here. So if I did want to, I can import as a sheet and I'll just browse for my drawings. I'll go to this CAD webinar and you'll notice that it says that this layout actually isn't in here and it's not letting me put, well, you could put the other ones, but they're already in, but you could just import the one that you haven't actually put in yet. So if I do import it, it ends up being in here. In here, I can start to rename and renumber should I need to. Maybe I wanted this to be architecture 04 and I'll just say okay. And the reason for that is because I actually have fields in my title block. So you'll notice my title block right away, it goes to sheet A04. So if I'll just renumber it again so you could see it work. And I'll just regenerate all and you'll notice that that changes. I also use that in my drawing names, drawing title blocks rather. And if I do like create a new, I can even create a new sheet from here and I can start to name number and it'll actually generate a new sheet here. And then I can call it the file name. I can even put a file path and I can also specify the sheet title block of which it could use. So you could change that to be your company title block. For this one, another little handy thing that I use, if I just copy this over and I move it here, I'll just edit this attributed text. And it is, I want to change my scale. So I'm just going to edit this field and I'm going to pick this viewport instead. And I want, where is my custom scale? So as I change this viewport, maybe 116, you'll notice that my scale changes with it. So it's just one less thing that I have to worry about when I'm doing my drawings. So take advantage of fields. So this can pick up the sheet number or whatever you specify, obviously. And this is just picking up the viewport scale. In terms of, I'll just close this off. In terms of the CUI and maybe hotkeys, so a lot of people have complained about the insert tab. It's kind of, the blocks are basically new, so it's this one. There is also classic insert, which is kind of what we're used to. You can actually change them if you wanted to. So I'll just quickly show you that. Let me just, I'll just go into CUI. And where it is if I just go to insert, you'll notice that there is this one here. So classic is still in here. So it's still hiding here. And we can actually move it over. So if I'll just find where it is under, let me just check my notes quickly. Ribbon. So here's that insert one. So if I did want to put my classic one, I could just drag and drop it here. And in here, I can start to say what I want it to look like. So maybe I want it to look like that. If I click apply, okay, and I go into my insert tab, you'll see that my classic insert's here now. Even still, if you do press I, you'll notice that insert is still that main one. So the one that Autodesk has recently created, you can actually adjust that. So if we just go into manage, edit aliases, it will bring up this notepad. And these are where all of the commands are located. So if I just type in insert, it's here. So I could actually just change this to be classic insert instead. And if I save that, technically you're supposed to restart AutoCAD, but you can just use this command here, reinit, and it will just say the PGP file, which is that alias that we just adjusted. And now if I click insert, you'll notice that this says classic insert now. And now I've changed it to be the classic insert instead. Just take note that depending on how your IT has set it up, just have a look at if you go to save as and where it's actually saving to, make sure that it's saving to your local one, which you can kind of see that it's a local file. Just because if it is a network location, then anything that you change in here will also adjust other people's settings. So maybe they don't want to use that. So for example, I changed my circle and copy. I just have them at the bottom here because I didn't want circle to be C. I wanted copy to be C instead. So that's my personal preference, but I don't want to force that upon other people. So just take note of that. We can also use the CUI to actually create multi-lines like this. So oops, let me just go to the CUI, and I think I called it next. Yeah. So I've created the CUI. I've created a macro. So basically I'm just saying create a new layer with this external wall, layer name, changing its color and what the multi-line is going to be. And then I've also specified that I want it to look like that in my tool palette, and I've put it into my tools. And I did the same thing for 300. So you kind of have to set this up first, but then in here, in my draw, I just put it under here. So I have this external wall. It's also asking me to start my start point, and I can also pick a style. If you aren't sure of which styles, you can just press that. And I can see that I have 3 different styles here. So I could just say my 300 millimeter exterior wall, and then I can draw it out. This is handy because if I did put another one here, for example, it actually has its own little tool. So if I just double click it, I can start to pick out all these multi-line edit tool. So maybe I want an open tree, and I'll select that, and I'll select this one, and it'll trim that for me. So the way I've done this, I'll just need to delete it. Unfortunately, it is limited, and Autodesk has stopped actually working on them. So unfortunately, you can't modify them if they are drawn, but I'll show you how I've done it. Actually, I'll show this one instead. I basically created offsets from where I want it to be. So I wanted to draw from exterior inwards, and then you can start to specify your offset. And you can even change your line type. I did try putting in that insulation hatch as my line type, but it just didn't reach the edges. So I kind of just skipped that and I just put my hatches in accordingly. So it's something to look into. It is unfortunate that you can't edit them once they're already drawn. You have to delete and redraw it, but it also does expedite the fact that I don't need to do all these offsets and trimming. So it's just something to have a look at. I also like to use Lisps. So this block legend is actually a Lisp. So again, this one is limited as it's not live. So I'll just upload it. And let me just put in this one and this one. That's also under, if you don't like typing, it's just under here, load applications, or upload if you like to type. So now if I do my legend, it's just my block legend, so B legend. I can specify which blocks I want to add to the list. As you'll notice, that first block that we made is actually in there now, whereas it's not in my original one. So I tend to just create a legend that I like the layout of, and then I just put one on top of it. So I'm just going to specify it like that. And then in here, I can start to drag and drop and make it accordingly. So again, it's not live linked, but it still makes the process faster. So as you can see, we have our blocks that we have drawn, their name of the block, what the description is. Maybe I'll change the color because it's hard to read. And then the count. So even this one, CAD webinar rectangle, that description that I did when I originally created the block is now here, and how many there are. You can also use that for a Lisp such as lines. So it's just legend. And then I could just select these lines, and I'll just select an insertion point. It's tiny in paper space, just model space rather, because it's meant for paper space. So I'm just going to scale it 150. But you'll see that it starts to pick up the type of lines that are drawn in here, and its layer as well. So I have that on the layer type A and layer type B. So right away we can start to make our line legends, and you can use that in your title blocks as well and your template files. I also used a custom hatch Lisp. So let me just find here. So it basically just creates this little block here, and then whatever you put in here will export in. The thing that I found is that it doesn't like curves, so that's why I just used this kind of blocky text, and I used the express tools again. So I just found a blocky text that I liked. I went to my express tools, and then in modified text, I just did explode, and then it'll just explode it. It puts it far away, but that's right. And it gives me this line work of the text. So I use that to create my own custom hatch patterns. So maybe something along the lines of this here. So maybe it's a 200 thick slab. This one, I'm still not sure. So it's just to be confirmed. And this, I know that I want 240 block work. So I've put the hatch over it. I've also used this type of workflow to create custom floors. And then I actually put them into Revit. So that's pretty handy as well. So yeah, I just made tons of these different ones, and it's a really easy script. It tells you what to do. It says like select what's in here, and it already gives you this block as well, which you don't have to create. If you are looking for some good Lisps, let me just open up this one here and move it over. So this has either screenshot or just type in quickly kimprojects.com and just look at their free Lisps here. So yeah, there's tons in here. So that legend one that I just showed you, for example, is here. and you could just download them and put them into your program. So yeah, there's tons in here. And there's tons online as well. Just have to look for them. Okay. So another neat tool that we can use is actually Dynamo, but it's not available in CAD as of yet. I'm trying to get Autodesk to do it for us, which should be handy, but it is in Civil 3D. Let me just save and close out of this though. And open up my Civil 3D. If you do have the AEC collection, then you will have access to Civil 3D. You may or may not have touched it, but it acts basically the same as CAD would, so I could still use that same file. It obviously just has extra stuff that's needed for Civil, but then I can start to play around with Dynamo to just expedite my workflow. So I'll just open up Dynamo and show you quickly. I will just open up my divide measure. So it looks a little bit complicated, but it's pretty easy once you get used to it. So basically, I'm just gonna select my object, which is this one here. And then I can say if I want to divide the curve equally or measure from endpoint to endpoint. And I can, basically, I'm just gonna put numbers and circles around it. So if I run the script, you'll notice that it goes here. I'll just change it to automatic so I can quickly show you the power of it. So as I start to move this around, it's automatically adding and spacing everything out. I don't have to worry about it. As you'll notice, it says 27 here. And if I move this over, it's already moved to 34, and they're all spaced equally. The same thing I can do if I just want to go here and I want to divide that line into 10 segments, basically. So if I move it here, it'll always make these even at 10 segments because I specified. Conversely, if I just change the one number to 20 instead. Let me just double check that. Yeah, there we go. Now it's put them into 20. I also have another script that I can show you guys, which is hatch by layer. So basically that type A, type B that I had, which are basically just this red and green, I can start to specify what type of hatch I want it. So let me just run that. You'll see it's put everything that is on that layer and is an enclosed object, it will add that layer. I can also delete that hatch and maybe I want it to be solid instead. And it'll do that. And I can also specify the scale and the rotation of it as well. And the last script that I'll show you guys is the area. This one here. So what this does, I'll just run it. Whatever, let me just do automatic. Whatever is enclosed, it'll start to calculate the area. And I also have it cater to perimeter as well if I wanted to. So this one's a little bit more complex and it has a little bit more coding, but you can easily find this online. The Dynamo community is really good. So as you see, as I change this, it will change from perimeter to area. So right away, we can quickly get that text, and it is text. So if we are in here, we can change it if need be. And then our original little house that we had, it's created these areas and perimeters of the little house. So, and then obviously just changing the calculations, I can change that to even just adjusting the text in here. For example, I can change it to square meters, and I can also change that if I divide it. And that's just using like a division tool and a bit of rounding and changing of text. It's a little bit more intense, but just to show you the capabilities that you do have to be a bit more efficient. And that's all I have for today. So just open that up. Oh, let me change this. There we go. I think I did see some questions come in.
Thanks, David. So
No
we have a question from Leslie.
Yep.
So they asked, does Word for AutoCAD architecture as well as Paint AutoCAD?
Yeah, because it'll be part of the same like suite. Like it's basic AutoCAD architecture is basically, I guess it depends which version of AutoCAD architecture, but if it's the most recent one, then they're all kind of under the same umbrella. They're basically just specialized tool sets. But there is, I can quickly show, I'll just open up my CAD again. All of these are from like the architectural, mechanical tool sets, electrical. So all these are already created from Autodesk as well. But yeah, I guess it would depend on which version you're using, but it should be fine.
And just Nola, this recording will be uploaded on a YouTube channel. So I'll just send you the link so you can just keep an eye out on that.
Zarko messaged and said, what is the advantage of using named views in Paperspace? I might need a bit more specifics on that one. If you mean like how I renamed these. Let me just open up my, just need to close it in here, or I'll just open it in here. If you mean these ones, if you could just specify that one a bit better, that, or a bit more, that'd be great. And if there are any other questions as well.
We'll just wait for one more minute. About 30 more seconds, guys. Any more questions?
Yeah, there we go.
Another one?
Yep.
So, question from Scott.
Yeah, I'm reading and
Yep.
Yeah, you can read it out loud if you want.
Yep. So, is there a simple way to edit and update attribute data from an Excel table? Trying to update cable numbers in a writing diagram. Currently have to export attributes, but it's a bit tedious.
You should be able to see attributed data. Oh, there's Batman. And this will give you all the attributed data that you have in your file. That might help you. Because right away I can start to edit that attributed data. I don't know if I have any, I don't have an example of actual attributed data in here, I don't believe. Hopefully, yeah, try the Batman on your example and see if that works. And then how do we create live labels for our drawing scale and section description? I might have showed you that. So it was, if you mean this one, this is just attributed text. And then I've just, this 1 to 50 is just a field. So you can just say, this one says edit, but if I just do a space, you'll see it says insert field. And then it'll give me all that stuff that I can use. And then for I just said object, for example, and then I just specified that I want it to be this viewport. And then you have all of this different things that you need. For mine, I wanted the scale, and then you can start to specify how you want the scale. So 1 to 50, for example. And that'll work for your viewports. And that's live as well, provided you regenerate. Let me know if there's anything else, guys.
Yeah, I think so. We'll just wrap it up there, David. Thank you.
Okay, cool. I'll just put this one back up.
Yep. So thanks again, guys, for joining us. And you can view our future upcoming webinars. You can just visit autocadtechnologies.com.au/events. And as always, if you have any more questions, you can contact us via email at info@autocadtechnologies.com.au.